This is the official Sony FX6 Specs speculation. For some reason, the Sony FX6 Specs is still not out yet, even though this camera has been announced since the FX9 came out last year. But today we're gonna be speculating the specs of this camera, and for some reason there's not even like any rumors or anything about it. So I'm pretty much gonna be pulling this data off of my ass and from the specs of Sony FS5 right here that this camera seems to be based off of, and the Sony A7S III that was released recently. And shouts out to my broke boys who can't afford these cameras but still watch these videos anyways. Let me see you guys in the comment section. Alright, the first thing we're gonna start out with the look of this camera, because that's all we know for now, which is looks pretty much identical to the Sony FS5 right here. As you can see, it seems to be like a lighter gray color, which matches the Sony FX9. From what I can tell, they're just replacing the Sony FS5 and FS7 with the Sony FX6 and then the Sony FX9, which is already out. As you can see, they pretty much kept the same exact design, except for they, changed it up a little bit. Like there's a full mini button here, but instead here there's an iris control and your focus control. So they changed it up a little bit, but it's good that it's pretty much the same because I like this interface, because you don't have to go through the menu to do a lot of things. You can just do it right here on the camera. But it's cool that they kept it pretty much the same because since we're used to this controls right here, we'll feel right at home when we get the FX6. As you can see, there's only two audio interfaces, so I'm guessing there's only two channels. But I believe you can get two extra channels if you use the hot shoe adapter at top, like the ones that Sony provide that goes through like the connection right here on the hot shoe. Alright, now let's get into the specs of this camera. And for the specs, I'm guessing they're gonna be pretty much taking the Sony A7S III, which is an amazing camera. But if you have seen my other videos where I complain about it, because they're putting this amazing camera onto a photography camera's body. Doesn't make sense to me. But as long as they take these amazing specs and they put it onto the FX6, I'll be happy with it. That sounds like the perfect camera to me. But we're literally just gonna look at the specs from the A7S III, and because I'm guessing they're just gonna do the same thing. For example, the 12 megapixels. If they put this on the FX6, so we have a full frame 12 megapixel camera, that'll be an amazing camera. It might actually be better than the FX9 in low lights, just like how the A7S III is better than FX9 in low light. And so I'm guessing it's going to be an amazing 4K camera, and it's going to be a big upgrade from the Sony FS5, which is more of a 1080p camera, and this camera doesn't do that well in low light since this camera is a Super 35 sensor right here. Now when we get to the image stabilization, I don't think the Sony FX6 will have sensor shift image stabilization. Because Sony hasn't done that with their cinema line at all. But I believe it will have the gyro image stabilization the FX9 will have. So you will get some sort of stabilization, and the gyro works quite well also. But they might put it in. I would say it would kind of make sense for them to put it in, because the FS5 line has always been just a like a handheld, run and go kind of type of camera. It's great for documentary work. So having a stabilized sensor would be great for that, I think. The Sony A7S III has a very extended 409,000 ISO, and hopefully you'll get even better low light performance out of this camera. It would be amazing if FX6 end up being, Sony's like both a handheld cinema camera, but also their low light king. That would be amazing. And we're just gonna skip all the photography stuff because that's not really relevant. But when we get to recording modes, I believe it will have all these plus more. I don't think it will have internal RAW because Sony just doesn't do that for some reason. Even if you buy a Sony Venice, believe it or not, it doesn't do internal RAW. You still have to buy like the back plate for it, and then you can do RAW externally. So I don't think it will do internal RAW, but I'm sure it will do external RAW. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a paid upgrade because that's what Sony has always done. And I believe they also did that with their FX9 also. You have to pay to shoot RAW with it. But I'm sure it will do the same thing pretty much. It will do 4K 16 bits, but I'm guessing it will do 4K 16 bit 120 FPS. And I'm saying that because the Sony FS5 actually can do 4K 120 RAW. So If the FX6 doesn't do it, that would be a big downgrade from the FS5. But hopefully it will do 4K 120 rocks, and that will give a reason for people to get that camera over the A7S III besides just the ergonomics. Unlimited recording, of course. I think it will do 2 XLR inputs. It won't do any stereo input. But the thing you can do is that, which I do a lot, is that you can actually just get like a little adapter. Like if you look at right here, if it focuses, right here, as you can see, I put an XLR. I mean, not an XLR. I put a 3.5 millimeter port on it, which is a simple adapter you can just get. If I can just take this off. Wow, this is actually like impossible to take off. Okay. Here, as you can see, you can get something like this. Come on, focus on my head. Focus on my hand. Come on. Come on. I'm failing Tony Northup right now. Oh no. Come on. Let me focus. Oh my god, it's not focusing. Oh, here we go. You can get something like this, which is an easy adapter that just turns your XLR port into 3.5 millimeter. And then I can just, plug in my... I should just plug in the Rode Video Mic Go. Not the Video Mic Go. This thing right here. The Rode Lav on it, because it doesn't use XLR. It just uses the 3.5 millimeter. It uses the 3.5 millimeter jack on it, so I can plug this in right into my FS5, no problem. So, and you just plug that in. So, 2 XLR ports is perfectly fine, in my opinion. And if you want to add even more, I believe you can just get the hot shoe adapter thing, and that should add 2 more. If it doesn't, you can just shoot it externally if you need to like record 4 people. Okay, now that when we look at the focus, that's gonna be the big upgrade. Cause honestly, this is like the one reason I really want to upgrade to a Sony FX6 is that the autofocus on the Sony FS5 is awful. It's not usable, Like you can use it to like honestly, you can't even use it. I'm just gonna say it's unusable. Cause even if you want to like focus it to just be like, oh, let me just tap the focus or whatever, you can't do that. Like it's just a really slow and shitty focusing system. I believe it's contrast based, so it's unusable. But to contrast that with the Sony A7 cameras, they have amazing focus that kind of makes focus pullers obsolete. I'm not gonna say that, but for like smaller projects, the autofocus on the A7 III is just amazing. So putting that autofocus onto the Sony FS5 is gonna be amazing, and I'm super excited about that. But that's gonna be probably the biggest upgrade for the FX5. I mean FX6. When it comes to the memory card slots, I think it's gonna be the same thing as the A7S III, where you're gonna be able to put either a CF Express Type A or an SD card into the same slots, and I have 2 of them. And as you can see, A7S III, I mean FS5 has like this door, and you can put 2 cards in it. Dude, this is like so hard to focus. Okay, here we go. As you can see, you'll be able to put both of your cards in there. So that's exciting to see, and hopefully it will just be the same thing as the A7S III, because I like having the option to choose either SD or CF Express card depending on what I'm shooting. Now let's look at the FS5 specs just to get a better idea of what FX6 is gonna have that the A7S III is not gonna have. First of all, it's gonna have that amazing Sony internal ND filters, and if you don't know why it makes the Sony one so much greater, if you ever use any other camera that has internal ND filters, they go in steps. Here, I'll put some footage right here so you can see the idea. It will just go like bloop, bloop. But with the Sony FS cameras, you just turn it on and you can adjust it however much you want without having to see like the ND filter come on and off. It's a big deal. So that's one of the big reasons why I don't approve of the Sony A7S III, because it's in that photography camera's body. You're missing out on that amazing Sony ND filters. So this is one thing I think it will be different on the FX6, and I hope I'm right on this, is that I think continuously it will do 4K 120 FPS, and on 1080p it will probably do 240. But the FS5 has this amazing buffer mode where you can do like some super high frame rates. Like the FS5 can shoot up to 1080p 960 FPS on it. It looks terrible, but it can do it. And I'm hoping the FX6 can do it also, but actually give us good quality on the 960 FPS, because it is pretty cool to be able to do that stuff. And I'm hoping they even like go crazy with that, give us like 2000 frames per second or something. I don't care if it's 360p or whatever. It's just cool to have those features in your camera. Now I'm guessing the camera will have a full HDMI that you can shoot out of, but I'm sure it will have an SDI output where you can get a raw video out of it. I don't know if they will do raw out of HDMI. You can do it out of the A7S III, so hopefully you can just shoot it out of the HDMI. Because when they limit it to just SDI, you have to get something like a Ninja Inferno, which is a like a $1,600 external recorder or screen, whatever you want to call it. But with the HDMI, you can shoot ProRes out of it on like something smaller, like a Ninja V or whatever. You can shoot. You just have you just it just gives you the ability to shoot it just gives you the ability to shoot RAW or ProRes on a cheaper device than having to get like a Odyssey Q or whatever. That's super expensive to get. And I don't think the camera's gonna have time code. Some people love using time code, and for stuff like shooting TV or movies, that is necessary. But and Sony doesn't really put time code in like their smaller cameras, so I don't think it will have it. I think even for the FX9, you had to get like the external like backpack thing or whatever it's called to like get time code out of it. I don't know why they just don't do it, but hopefully they'll add it in. So guys, that's pretty much gonna be it. I think the FX6 is gonna be pretty much an A7S III shrunken down into an FS5's body. That's gonna be a really good low light camera. It's gonna have amazing autofocus and 4K features. So it's gonna be a pretty big upgrade from the FS5 in my opinion. But if you're just shooting 1080p and you're manually focusing, then I don't think you really need to upgrade. But if you're someone that's gonna need 4K, then definitely it's gonna be worth the upgrade, and the autofocus is definitely gonna be help. If you're someone that's like, oh, I don't need any autofocus, you gotta try these like newer cameras, like the Canon and the Sony are releasing, because the autofocus is a big deal. But anyways, guys, hopefully I can get one when it comes out. But I am part of the broke boys nation, so I probably won't be able to afford it. But we'll see. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.